this is the last week in our Family Matters series tonight. We're talking about big impact. Talking about, really we're going to sum it all up into one thing you can do to make a huge impact in your family for the better. Something that you can start doing tonight, tomorrow morning, right now, where you are in your life, what age you're at. Doesn't matter, all right? It's something that can actually be a huge game changer in the atmosphere and in the attitudes of your family and all its interactions with each other. So there's actually kind of a lot of things you'll be able to take, action steps you'll be able to take tonight too. So you can see at the bottom of your listening guide I gave you extra note space where you can just write some other things down. I'm sorry I didn't have a whole lot of time to spend on the listening guide this week, so that's why that's there. But I'm going to be giving you some other things that you can write down along with our main themes that might be of benefit for you to record. Yeah? Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read our passage. We're just going to sit in Ephesians 4:17 through the end of that chapter, through verse 32. That is our passage we're going to pull out, and we're going to separate it into 6 main themes that are being communicated to us through this passage. Now, the context is that Paul has gotten to actually living as a Christian in the atmosphere of the church, so all the other people. And so we're going to take that and we're going to make it even smaller, and we're going to say the atmosphere of your family. Okay? Now that's probably going to work. And so if you've got like your phone, or iPod or anything, you can throw that bad boy inside. It'd be awesome. We can all still be friends though. Alright, so we're going to read Ephesians 4:17-32. It says, "With the Lord's authority I say this, live no longer as the Gentiles do, for they are hopelessly confused. Their minds are full of darkness. They wander far from the life God gives because they have closed their minds and hardened their hearts against Him. They have no sense of shame. They live for lustful pleasure and eagerly practice every kind of impurity. But that isn't what you learned about Christ. Since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that comes from Him, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. So stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body. And don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. If you are a thief, quit stealing. Instead, use your hands for good hard work and then give generously to others in need. Don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. And do not bring sorrow to God's Holy Spirit by the way you live. Remember, He has identified you as His own, guaranteeing that you will be saved on the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you." Alright, so that's our passage. I wanted to get it all out there in the open instead of just reading verse by verse, so we can consider it all in its context. Now, before we kind of dig into these, I just want to let y'all know that there is something that is going to be understood for this message, okay? Something that I want y'all to know, and that is that it's understood, okay, that as we're talking about all this, that y'all are ready to begin functioning as adults in your family. Okay? That doesn't mean you are an adult. Okay? You are a young adult. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's actually a great thing. But it's time for you to stop being a kid in the sense that everyone exists in your family to meet all your needs and do everything for you. It's about you. It's time for you to begin functioning as an adult, meaning that not only do you take responsibility for your own actions, but you begin to take responsibility for the actions and the attitudes of your fellow family members. That doesn't mean you call the shots or rule over people, but it means you take an interest in helping your family do all the things that your family needs to do. All right, all the way from making sure you get places, to making sure the house is clean, to family finances, all that stuff. Y'all can begin to play an actual role in making sure that that stuff can happen. And I just want to throw that out. I know that that's kind of a counterculture thing. Your culture wants you to remain an adolescent for as long as possible. Now until you're in your early 30s, they want you to act like a little kid. And live it up and party hardy and do all that stuff. Alright? But Scripture encourages us to take responsibility for ourselves and the people around us. Okay, so that's just kind of an understood truth that is woven in through this message. Does that make sense? Yeah. Woven? Yeah. Remember, this means yes, this means no, and this means maybe. Okay. There you go. Ooh, I got kind of dizzy when I did that. Alright, so the first major theme we're going to pull out is we're going to look at verses 17 through 24 because they all kind of go together. The first thing we're talking about is we're going to intentionally choose to follow Jesus instead of just going with the flow. We're going to intentionally choose to follow Jesus instead of just going with the flow. Yes, Matthew.
Does that mean like not being a hippie?
I hadn't really thought of that. Hippies haven't really been around in a while. But we're going to unpack it right now and explain. So you can decide whether or not I'm talking about hippies. Cool? Alright, so instead of intentionally choose to follow Jesus instead of going with the flow. Alright, let's look in verses 17 through 24. Alright, especially 22, it says, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Alright, actually, in the New American Standard, it said, for lust and deception, it actually says lusts of deceit. Just kind of a hardcore phrase. And you're kind of like, what if that sounds cool? What does it mean? What it's talking about is this, is that the deceit of lust is that lust tells you, if you give in to me, I will satisfy all your hungers. If you just do what I'm telling you to do, you go in the direction I want you to go in, you'll have everything you need and you will be satisfied and you will be full. That is actually a lie. Because what happens is it traps you in this never-ending cycle of continually wanting more and never being satisfied. That is kind of our default mode. If we just kind of go with the flow and do whatever, we default into this thing where we're just living to satisfy our different hungers. We're hungry, and so we go eat some food. And most of the time as Americans, let's just be honest, we eat too much food. And that is called gluttony. And it's actually not a good thing. Okay? Or we want to have fun. And so we go out and we do all the things that we can think of as fun with our friends, regardless of whether they're legal or not, or proper or not, or appropriate, or I can't think of the words. Anyway, so, or we want to be by ourselves, and so we push everybody out and we say, I don't want to talk to anyone, I don't want anybody to talk to me, and so I'm just going to give into this, I'm going to go into that, and that's what's going to fix me in this moment right here. And we just kind of go along however we feel. We want to satisfy those feelings, and that's how we roll. Alright? That is directly opposed to following Jesus. Because when we follow Jesus, it's not about giving in to any desire that comes in us, Verse 24 says, put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. That word holy means set apart for the things that God has for us. And righteous means we're living rightly, in a right relationship with other people and in a right relationship with God. In other words, that is an intentional choice. So here's the thing. All these other things are contingent upon this first one being fulfilled. What that means is that if we don't do the first one, we're going to have a really hard time keeping up with the last 5. Okay? So how does that play out in everyday life? Intentionally choosing to follow Jesus instead of just going with the flow. Well, the biggest thing you can do is making sure you have your daily devotional time with God. Whether that's in the morning, at night, in the middle of the day, whenever. Okay? It's doing your devotions, whether that's you're using one of the Devo books or another Devo book that you have or reading your Bible. But it's doing that, being intentional about it, and then being intentional about praying and asking God to help you apply this in your family first. Usually we want to apply it everywhere else, and then maybe our family will get, some nice attitude and some nice behavior. All right? But asking God, I want to apply this to my family first, and just praying the prayer, Jesus, help me intentionally follow you in the midst of all my family relationships and familial interactions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, having a daily devotional time or daily quiet time is crazy important. Alright? If you don't do that, it's going to be really, really hard to intentionally follow Jesus because you're going to be running on empty. Alright, moving on to the second one. Alright, looking at verse 25. This one is be transparent and honest with others. Be transparent and honest with others. Look in verse 25. It says, stop telling lies. It's pretty, straightforward, right? Stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for you're all parts of the same body. Be transparent and honest with others. I just wrote some notes in here. One thing I wrote down was no sneakiness. No sneakiness. Let me explain that. When I was in high school, it was my goal to be as sneaky as possible about what I did with my time when I wasn't at home and with my friends. Now, I got around it. I was like, my parents were like, hey, where are you going? I'm going to my friend's house. We're going to Brad's house. That's okay. Technically, that was true. Because at some point, we ended up at Brad's house, right? Okay? All the other stuff and all the other places we went, I'm going to have to tell about that. Alright? And so, that's not, I know that's kind of like, oh, typical American teenager, go have some fun, it's not a big deal. Here's the deal, guys. Usually, when you sneak around like that, you're doing things that aren't good. And that your parents would be like, I really don't want you doing that. Like stealing traffic cones, throwing people's garbage cans over their mailboxes. Not really things I want you doing, okay? So, those are just examples I thought of.
Are you sure?
I can deny, I don't confirm anything. Anyway, so, the point is that if you live an open life, meaning, if your parents know where you're going and what you're doing and who you're doing it with, it's going to be a lot harder for you to fall into the trap of doing things that just aren't good for you. That doesn't mean you're never going to have fun again. It means that you're going to have good fun. Fun that helps you and helps others. Right? Alright, so I wrote no sneakiness. I also wrote down clear motives. Clear motives. A lot of times I try to hide my motivations for things from my parents. Why do you want to go and hang out with all your friends all the time and never be at home? I just really like my friends, I see you guys occasionally. It's cool. Okay, we're not going to throw out every hypothetical situation. Okay.
This could be.
Alright, so Don't overanalyze and overthink this, okay? But living a transparent life, making sure that you, listen, if you can open up your life and your parents can look into it and say, hey, that stuff is cool, that's awesome, that is a really good thing. If you can't open up your life to your parents, you've got some problems. You may think, it's not a big deal, I should be able to do whatever I want, it's not going to hurt me, it's not going to hurt anybody. But you know what? You're going to look back and you're going to have regrets. Those people who say, I just lived life, I never have any regrets, that is a load of crap. Okay? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay? That's not true at all. Okay? People who live that way have regrets. So, you should be able to open up your life to your parents and to your siblings. And be transparent and honest. Okay? Transparent and honest. That's what Christians do. Alright, 3. Preemptive strikes, not reactions. Preemptive strikes, not reactions. Yes,
Exactly. Where does preemptive strike?
I'm going to explain that. Alright, let's look at our verses here. Verses 26 and 27 say, don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. A preemptive strike, not reactions. I mean, most of us live reactionary lives. We react to whatever circumstances come our way. The bad thing about that is most of us just kind of go to our default reaction mode, which isn't good, right? Preemptive strike means that instead of reacting, you are aware of how you naturally react to things, and you constantly work on it so that, let's say, something that really annoys you, let's say that your parents ask you to do something, and you do it, and then they come back and tell you you did it wrong, or they want you to do it another way, or you didn't do enough of it, alright? And your reaction is anger. Grr, I'm going to yell at you, you don't understand me, nothing's ever good enough, blah, blah, blah. And you say some things that aren't good and don't help the situation, okay? Now, let's say, alright, parents asked me to do something, this is the history of this. Okay, now my mom and dad could come back and say, hey, could you do it better this way, or you didn't do it right, or blah, blah, blah. So instead of angry outbursts, preemptive strike the angry outburst, and I'm just not going to say anything at all. That way I can't get in trouble, right? And I'm not going to make weird looks or be like, I'm not saying anything, okay? I'm stoic. I'm going to say, yes ma'am, yes sir, and I'm just going to do it the way they asked me to. Make mental notes to do it that way in the future, and be done. That's what I mean by preemptive strikes instead of just reacting all the time. So it's looking at the triggers and looking at your personality. And you and the Holy Spirit working together to fix that so you don't fall into sin. It says, don't sin by letting anger control you. Meaning, being angry in and of itself is not a sin, guys. Okay? That's not a sin. It's what you do with that anger. Okay, you get into trouble. So if you stew in your anger and you just think about how you're right and that was so wrong and how you're justified and they're not, you're going to sin. And the devil's going to have a field day with you. Okay? So preemptive strikes, not reactions. Alright, 4. I really like this one. Contribute to your family. Contribute to your family. Contribute to your family. Alright. Verse 28 says, if you are a thief, quit stealing. I'm not saying all of you are thieves, okay? Instead, use your hands for good, hard work, and then give generously to others in need. Alright. In other words, we kind of live in America as grown up as kids. Let me take as much as I possibly can. Alright? I'm just going to take, I'm going to take, I'm going to take, I'm going to take. I deserve, I'm entitled, I should have this, I should have that, I'm going to take. Alright, as Christians, we have this truth that's woven throughout the New Testament of that we make sure that we work and we work diligently, and we work hard so that we can provide for others when there's a need. Now, I'm not telling all of you to go out and get jobs and give your paycheck to your parents, okay? But what I am saying is this, is that look at you in the middle of your family and say, how can I contribute, how can I give to my family instead of always take? All right, take some responsibility for yourself and say, what can I do to add to my family? All right, so some of you have part-time jobs. You do some part-time work. So here's the thing. I don't know what kind of system you set up with your parents, okay? But as Christians, we know that the first 10% of any income we generate goes to God, goes to the church. That's called a tithe, okay? So make sure we're doing that. All right, and then hopefully your parents make you save some. So you can save another 10%. Put that away. Hopefully more than that, since you don't have to pay like rent and stuff now. All right, but maybe your parents don't make you give anything, contribute anything back to the family. Maybe you could take a really outrageous step and say, you know what, I'm going to contribute another 10% or this portion of every check I get or money I get to my family. I'm going to tell my parents, I really want to give this back because of how much I've been given. And they'll probably say, no, you don't have to do that, we'll just keep it. And then you can say, but I really, really want to. I feel like I'll be serving the Lord if I do this. And they'll say, well, we really, really want you to keep it. And then you can say, okay, I'll honor you as my parents and obey you. And not fight with them about it, okay? But switching your mindset into, I'm going to contribute to my family. Maybe you don't have a job or you're not old enough to get a job or whatever. It doesn't mean you have to get one. There are other ways you can contribute. Maybe instead of fighting about doing your chores all the time, you can just do them without being asked. Or, crazy thought, do other people's chores too. And here's another crazy one, okay? And your parents might not be down with this, and so if they're like, I don't think that's a good idea, just say, okay, I just thought I'd ask because Willis suggested it, okay? Ask to see your family budget. Say, hey, I want to be a part of making sure that our family uses its money for God's glory, and so I want to be in on the family budget, meaning I want to see where all this money is going, so that you know when you ask for money to go to a movie, or you ask for money to do something that we're going to do, or the Peanut Festival, or wherever, where that's coming out of, and how much your parents are sacrificing so you can do the things you want to do, or when you ask for a new pair of shoes, or new clothes that you don't necessarily need but you want that are expensive. You know, what is this doing to my family? Alright? Now your parents might not be down with that. They might be like, I don't really want you in on that. And you just say, hey, that's cool. I just want to be a part of helping our family win. Instead of just, bleeding us dry with constant requests. Alright? And so maybe you could say, well, maybe like in a couple of years, or maybe I could do some things to show I'm responsible enough, because I really want to help. Alright? That's what it's taking responsibility, acting like a mature adult instead of, I'm a little kid, I get whatever I want, I'm just going to keep asking for stuff. Okay? Now it's not bad to ask your parents for stuff. It's one reason you have parents, is to provide you with things. Your parents like to do that stuff. Okay? I know, I am a parent. I love to provide stuff for my kids. It makes me really, really happy. Okay? But at the same time, y'all are young adults. And so you can begin to contribute instead of just take. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little bit? Alright. Number 5, build your family up. Build your family up. Build your family up. Alright, now looking at verses 29 through 31, it says, don't use foul and abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful. We can just stop there. Everything you say be good and helpful. Look here, it says in verse 31, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, slander, as well as all types of evil. For evil right there, you can just insert the word selfish. It's a really good synonym for evil in the Bible. Selfish behavior. So we're getting rid of stuff, and we're actively doing things that are good and that are helpful. Yes, Matthew?
What is slander?
Slander means if I say you're stupid and you're ugly and you have a big wart on your forehead that makes you look even stupider and uglier. That's slander. You're welcome. Slander is saying mean things about other people. It's slander. It doesn't have to be true. In print it would be
You didn't even know what the word meant.
Hey, whoa. All right, so here's a really good example. Always say something that is good and helpful. All right, so just use it because it was just thrown out here. All right, so this also goes into the preemptive strike and not reactive. All right, and so it's easy for siblings to, and I'm sure that Matthew says all kinds of things.
No.
Okay. All right.
She knows.
It's easy. Hey, all those power. It's easy for siblings to just react, and you just say stuff. But when you think about it, did that actually help the situation any? Did that build anyone up? No, it didn't. All right. So I wrote down some questions you can ask yourself. Okay, for this one. The first one was, how do I encourage? How do I encourage? And you can think of this in terms of, what am I actively doing to encourage the members of my family? And this is something that takes your intentional action, okay? When was the last time you walked up to your mom or your dad and said, hey Mom and Dad, I was thinking about you today, and I just want to know, is there anything that I can pray for you? I'd like to pray for you right now. I guarantee you, if you did that to your parent, number one, they might pass out. And number two, you would make their day. Alright? Or your little brother or sister. When's the last time you told your brother or your sister, hey, I'm just really glad that you're my brother or you're my sister. I just want to tell you that I thank God for you. I just want to let you know that. Alright? So think about how you encourage the people in your family, because here's the deal. If we're not encouraging, we're discouraging. Okay? If you're not encouraging, you're discouraging. If you're not communicating good and helpful words, you're communicating harmful actions. Okay? Alright, the other question is, how do I make my family members better? How do I make my family members better? How do I make my family members better? What do you do that betters your mom? That betters your dad? That betters your sibling? Okay? What do you actively do that helps them to be better? Do you make fun of your sibling because they get bad grades in a subject? Or do you seek to help them because they get bad grades in a subject? Do you make fun of them because they have a hobby that they enjoy that you think is stupid? Or do you encourage them in that? Maybe get them something that would help them to continue to do that. So those are some really good questions to ask. All right, the number 6. Err on the side of grace and forgiveness. Err on the side of grace.
Is that a word? Is that a word?
It's totally a real word.
E-R-R.
Err. Err on the side of grace.
It's error.
Think error. All right. Verse 32 says, instead be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. Christ, or God through Christ, has forgiven us totally and completely of every sin we've ever committed, we're committing right now, or ever will commit. Period. Done.